benefit of people who have not received it. Just hold on a little bit. Just give you about 2 more minutes to set this up. Select the folder with building interactive website with JavaScript. I think there are several folders on that page. Yeah. The code templates will be used later for all the exercises and the projects that we'll be doing. Yeah. Okay, let's move on. Okay, so today's workshop will be on building interactive website with JavaScript. For the past 2 weeks, we have conducted a workshop on HTML and CSS, as well last week on Introduction to JavaScript. So for today, we'll actually combine these 3 technologies together to build websites that are more than static, they're interactive, based on different user inputs and the browser itself. So the table of contents is that firstly, we'll go through some HTML DOM fundamentals based on DOM element selection, DOM methods, event, as well as AJAX. After that, we'll finish this workshop off with a mini project. We'll build a mini project together. So the learning objective is to understand how JavaScript works to create dynamic content. We also want to know what an API is, as well as how to create a single page web application which consumes data and displays it to the user. So this workshop thesis will consist of 3 things. I'll go through a quick lecture on the things we need to know, as well as a demo by myself, and then hands-on exercises for everyone to do. As I believe in the importance of hands-on learning to really master the things that you learn, this is something that is very useful. And so why JavaScript? So the focus of this workshop is to really manipulate the document object model. If I'm not sure what document object model is, it is actually an object-oriented model to represent HTML. And all HTMLs can be modeled as an object where you can manipulate and modify using JavaScript. So there's a lot of built-in browser APIs for us to do so with JavaScript. And most important of all, it's very easy to learn and filled with lots of great libraries. So for the benefit of those who have not attended our past 2 workshops on HTML and CSS, I'll just do a quick introduction and cover of what it is about. So what's an HTML? All the websites that you see today are simply just HTML files, right? And a single web page is just a single one. And the multiple web pages is just made out of several HTML files. They are linked to one another using navigation tags. And HTML is just really, they are just made out of several elements, as you can see here. We have our head elements. We also have our body elements, and most of the content of your web page is parked under the body elements over here, right? And HTML then tells us the browser to display the content. So in this case, I have a heading element known as head tag. So every element starts off with a opening tag and a closing tag itself. So a closing tag has a slash over here. And what enclosed between this tag is the content that you want to display to the browser. So in this case, I have a header called "This is my first website," and then I also have another paragraph element. And the content of this is that I'm a junior developer looking to build more websites and enhance my skills. So remember that every element starts off with an opening and a closing tag. This is very important because later in this workshop, we actually modify these tags dynamically using JavaScript. So this is a simple website which displays a heading and a paragraph of text. The above, like head, HTML, they are just like default settings. And most of the content comes under the body elements where we'll put our content in. Next, more than just text, right? Actually, HTML elements also have attributes. And these attributes actually provide additional information about your elements. Elements are always specified in the start tag. So over here, right? This is the start tag. And then this is the end tag over here. and href, and they actually come in name value pair. So for example, I have this href tag over here, which equals to this website URL. So this is the name itself, and this is the value. And then I have another one, which is an image. It has an attribute of SRC, which stands for source. You have to give it, and the value is actually the path of the image that you want to render to the browser. Moving on to the next tag, image tag, actually it's very similar to the previous one, but now I added more attributes to it. You can have multiple attributes in an HTML element. So in this case, I specify the image to have a width of 500 pixels and a height of 600 pixels. Next one, a style is also how you style your elements. This is an inline style element. The style itself is the name of the attribute, and then the color column blue is the value. Also, the class is also an attribute, and the container is the value of the class. Okay, so what is CSS? So previously we covered HTML, which is really the skeleton of your website, the structure of the website. CSS stands for cascading style sheets and is used to design the interface for a website. CSS syntax is as follows. A CSS rule set consists of a selector like a p element, a class, and ID, followed by a declaration block surrounded by curly braces, a closing, opening, and a closing braces. After that, we have a property value pairs, where every property is matched with a value. For example, I can have a background color, which is a property, and the value can be a color like blue, pink, or brown. And we can have multiple declarations in a single block, and they are separated by semicolons, as we can see. So CSS selectors can be, there are a lot of CSS selectors. The most common one are ID, class, and element. So one important thing to note is that for ID selectors, right, you need to prefix with a hashtag. After that, followed by the ID name. And then for class, we need to prefix it with a period. After that, by the class name. And then for elements, it's just the name of the elements itself. Over the course of this workshop, we'll introduce more CSS selectors along the way. The selector is to select which HTML element to style, right? And we have different ways to style elements using CSS and how we can embed CSS into our HTML. So the first one uses inline CSS, which according at the bottom over here, we have this p tag, p element, and then style equals to colon color, colon blue, font size 12 pixels, and then font family. So this is a very specific style, right? Because it only style this p element, which has a content of this is a blue paragraph. After that, we have an internal CSS, which is defined in the head section of an HTML page within a style element. So in this here, we see that we have a style element, and we are styling all the body of the HTML to have a background color of corn flower blue, as well as all HTML elements to have a font size of 40 pixels and the color of aquamarine. So this is start using these style elements over here. Otherwise, the next one, which is the best one, or what people usually is to have an external style sheet. And you can link them using the link tag over here, and then the path of your file using the href. So external CSS is recommended because it separates your HTML with your CSS so that you don't clutter everything within one single HTML file. So you separate this, you separate this into different files and different components so that it's easier to manage at the end of the day as your project scales. Okay, so some examples is a p tag here, h1 element, and then this is a class. This is a class, container class over here. Remember that the prefix it with a period, and then element with this class has a background color of salmon, and with 60% and a margin 0 auto. So a human body analogy for this website is that HTML is akin to the skeletal system of the body, while CSS is like the clothes you wear, the cosmetic that you apply so that you look better. While JavaScript, which is the focus of today, is like the organs in the body, which provides different functionalities. So one example about the website is this website called undraw.com. So let me show you a little bit. So if you see here, right, it's just a very static website with a search bar. So if I search for something, right, let's say I search for mobile, you usually come up with different components here. And you realize that the web page did not read load. If compared to YouTube, right, if let's say I search for, let's say web dev tutorial, there's actually a page below here to give you the results, right? So in this case, it is very dynamic because there's no change, there's only change in the structure of the website, and then there is no page reload. So what they do is that they call data dynamically using JavaScript, which we'll do later in our project as well. So if I click on this, it shows me something immediately without anything. Yeah. But whereas I click this, it will link me to a new website, a new link. It link me to a new web page as well. So this is an example of a very dynamic website where you change the document object model using JavaScript. So I hope you are following with me. Okay. So I think we are good to begin on HTML DOM manipulation. Okay, so firstly, we are going to focus on selecting the HTML elements. And you can actually do so by several methods. The first one is to select by ID using this code over here called document.getElementById. by ID. Document is an object provided by the browser, which contains a lot of different methods for you to do a lot of different things. One of them is getElementById, which returns the element that has a ID attribute with a specified value. So if there is no ID that is specified in the parameter inside here, then it returns null. Yeah. If more than one elements have that specified ID, which shouldn't be the case, then this method will return the first element in the source code. Secondly, we have select by tag names. Tag names are basically just like h1, p tag, div tags, or a tags and core tags. And do note that this returns a collection of all elements. So previously by ID, it only returns one element. In this case, it returns a list of all elements that matches that tag. So if you select p tags, right, you select all of the p tags that's in the HTML itself. Secondly, we can select by class name. And so you can specify the class in this parameter over here. It also returns a collection of all the elements in the document with the specified class name. Okay, so the previous three we select by ID, class, and tag names. But we can actually do so using this thing called document.querySelector, which is actually a more general selection method. And it also returns the first element that matches this specified CS selector. Example is I select this class of container, and yeah, and then if you want to select more than one, use the query selector, or which returns all elements in the document that matches these specified CS selectors. So to recap a little bit, we have get element by ID, we have get elements by tag name, we also get elements by class name, and lastly, the more general one, which I use very often, it's query selector. So without ado, I'll just do a quick demo on this. You can go to your exercise template, then you open this thing called index.html for now, which I'll do my demo. Okay, so this is the website that I've created for you guys. And if you open the developers tools using inspect, you right click, Ctrl+Shift right click inspect, you can actually see all the HTML elements over here. So these are HTML elements over here. And we're going to take a shot in selecting some of these using JavaScript in the console. So for example, you want to select this paragraph of text, right? Which has a content of DSC Workshop 3. So notice that it has an ID of text over here. And I can select them using JavaScript. So I can use getElementById, which was introduced. So p equals to document.getElementById, and then I must state the value of the ID, which is text. In this case, if I run p, I get this element over here, which is exactly what we have in our HTML file. Otherwise, I can also select using query selector, and I pass in p tag. This thing will pass me, yeah. This will pass me the same thing as well. If let's say I want to select this container class, I have a div class called container. I can also use query selector. So I want my div class. So document.querySelector. And then my class is called container. But do note that because query selector is a more general selection method, I need to specify that I want to select a class. And the class always prefixed with a period. So I put a period over here. This is very important. Period over here. Then if I type div class, I actually have all my elements over here. Yeah. And then if let's say I want to select my paragraph again, over here. So I have a P with an attribute of ID called text, right? So select P4, then document. I can use query selector again. So in this case, just a reminder again that this is a general selection method. So I need to specify that I'm selecting an ID. And that means I must hashtag it with I must prefix it with a hashtag. So text, they return me the same thing. You don't have to, for document get element by ID, you don't have to specify a hashtag because it's already selecting an ID element. So ID attribute. So you just have to put this. Yeah. Okay. So uh, let's move on to one of the simple exercise right now. So you can open all of this file by opening the command prompt, and then you copy the path of the directory that you downloaded for the files. Then you change directory to the path that you have. Then you just code dot if you have Visual Studio Code. Otherwise, you can open them individually. You can open them individually, depending on your own code editor. Otherwise, you can use code dot on that directory to open up all the files at once. So if you open this website, right, head on to app.js. So what I created here is a button. I selected the button and I added an event listener. You don't have to understand what is this about, but you'll be gone through later. And I want you to, the first exercise is to edit this manipulate DOM1 function. So what you can do here is to select any HTML elements that we have over here. You can select the button, you can select the image, and I want you to print out to the console. Yeah. So what happens is, as I click this, print element over here, it will print out something over here as I click this. All you have to do is just to edit the code here, like document.createSelector inside this here, and then use console.log to print to the console. So I'll give you about 5 minutes to do this. Remember, you can use document.getElement by ID or document.querySelector. Then after that, use console.log to print to the console. Yeah, a very simple one. Just to apply what we have learned earlier. Remember that you need to edit this function inside here. You can select any of the elements over here and yeah, it's fine. Okay, I think I'll just go through. Okay, so let's say I want to select this button over here. We have a class called button. Then I use query selector. So on button, query selector. One thing you can do is that you can specify the HTML element like button that has a class called button. This will make it more specific. Then you console.log the button. So if we remember to refresh your file once you edit it. So if I click this, I'll get my element class over here. So to showcase, I click this, I have a button class over here. Then let's say I want to select the image as well. Select the image tag, image element, image. Then I print this to the console. Refresh this, and click this, and get this element over here. So the point of element selection is so that we can do something to all these elements, which is covered in the next slide now. So in this, I will continue to introduce more DOM methods so that we can know what to do with them. We do with the elements that we selected earlier. Okay, so other than creating elements in the HTML itself, you also can do so using JavaScript. And using this method called document.createElement, which creates an element node with a specified name. So for example, I can use document.createElementP to create a p tag element. And then I can populate the content using inner HTML. And this will create a complete p tag. But after doing so, you need to add this to the HTML itself, where you need to select the parent element and then append the element that you created over here. And you can do so using this append method, which adds to the bottom of your parent class. So in this case, I can call document.body.append to append my paragraph element in the body. After that, I can also remove using .remove method. And note that from here onwards, you always need to select elements in order to do so like all these element, paragraph, and elements, right? You need to select, which is covered in the previous slide. So do a quick demo on this, on creating elements. So I'll use this developer tools to show you again. So if let's say I want to create a new paragraph in this box over here, the blue box over here, and then my blue box is this div with a class of container. So this is my parent element. But first I create a new paragraph that I want to add in. New para document dot create element, a new paragraph element. Then I want to populate it with content dot inner text. You can use inner text as well. This is a new paragraph. Okay, so if I run new para, right, I'll get a basic HTML element. But you realize that this is not added to my HTML at all. And I want to add this inside my container over here, which is in background color of blue. And I'll add it to the bottom under the view image button. So what I can do is I select my div container class. So container equals to document.querySelector div.container. Then I want to append my new para to my, as you can see, my new paragraph is here. So creating elements actually consists of two steps. Is to create the element and then add this to your HTML. You can see that we have our new paragraph over here. Okay, and let's now try to create a new button. So const new button equals to document.createElement button, right? Then with button text, it's refresh. Let's say call this refresh. And if I run new button, I get a button element, very simple one. And I want to add this to, let's say, at the bottom of this, at the end of this div container class. So I can do that using body dot append new button. And you can see that my button is over here. My new button is over here. Yeah. So to summarize, creating elements consists of two steps. Is to create the element itself and then adding it to your HTML. Yeah. So my new button will be over here. Yeah. So you apply this to the end of my body, which is after my div element. Okay. So for the next exercise is to edit manipulate DOM2. I want you to create a new element called first start to web dev and a new paragraph called I enjoy manipulating HTML DOM, and then add this to HTML. You can edit under the body or inside the div class. Yeah, so another 5 minutes for this quick exercise. You can refer over here. So remember the two important methods that are introduced. And so remember to change this to 2 so that you can see the result. Manipulate DOM2, the button over here. So as you click this button, you'll show up, you'll run the code and then show the new elements inside here. Yeah. Change this to manipulate DOM2. It refers to this function here. Okay, I think I'll go through. So on to create a new heading, right? So I can use header. First document dot create element h1. Then header dot inner text or inner HTML is fine as well. First start to web dev, and then a new paragraph document dot create element p tag, then para dot in HTML. So I enjoy manipulating HTML DOM. Then I need to select my parent element, which is the div container class. Cons parent element dot query selector. I want to select my div container, div with class called container. And then what I do is that I append my header, and then I append my paragraph. And again, remember to change this to manipulate DOM2, which is this function. So if I refresh and I click this, I'll see that I get two elements over here at the bottom. Okay. Okay, let's move on to the next one. So more DOM methods again. I can also modify elements attributes as shown, like the style element, the source, the href tag that I showed you earlier, using one of four methods. So the first one is called has attribute, which returns true or false depending on whether the attribute exists in the HTML element. Also can get the value of the attribute using get attribute, which returns the value of that specified attribute. After that, I can use set attribute, which either add or update the current value of that specified attribute, or I can remove it using remove attribute. Yeah. And for similar, you need to select all the elements first before you can call all these methods. Okay, next one. I also can modify the elements classes by using use this property called class list, which returns the class names of an element. It returns a list of all the class. So if there's only one, you return one object in the list. It's similar to an array in programming languages. After that, so if you call class list, right, you also have access to all of these methods over here, which is add, remove, toggle, and replace. So add will add one or more class values. So for example, class list dot add active class, and then remove, you remove a class, and then toggles will just on and off. So if the class exists, you remove it. And if the class does not exist, it will add to the class list. And then also can replace an existing class value with a new class value. You also can modify the element styles itself using element.style.property equals to some new value that you want to add. And these properties are written in kebab case. If you realize that most of the CSS actually written in kebab case like text line over here, but in JavaScript, right, it's written in camel case equivalent. So text line will become this text align over here, and then border radius will become border radius in over here. Okay, so some demo. So to quick recap, I can modify elements attributes, classes, as well as styles. So in this case, let's say I want to modify my body style, the style of this body over here. So let's say I want to modify this body. Let's say I want to add a background color to this. So I can select the body, document, dot body, dot style, dot background, color, equals to, let's say, black. Hold on. Select black. Then you realize that it changes straight away. If you refer back to your HTML, actually see that this has a new attribute called style that is added to it, which has a color of black. Okay. And then, yeah, I also can modify my class over here. Let's say I want to remove this class called container. I can select my div class first. Let's say const div container. Go to document dot create selector div dot container. Then if I run this, I get my container class. Then I call the class this property. You can see this returns a list of all the class values that I have. So currently I only have one class, which is container, and I want to remove it. So I can remove dot class list dot remove my container, my class name. Then remove everything. Yeah. Now I want to add this back, right? I can just call this add over here, then add. Yeah. So to show you again, if I remove and you refer back to the HTML element, my div class is no longer exists. My container class no longer exists. It has been removed by JavaScript. And if I add this back, my class is back here. Okay. So this is for the class. So the next exercise is to firstly change this to DOM3, manipulate DOM3 for your button. and then refer back to this function over here. So I want you to modify the attribute and then retrieve the link of the DSC website, then change it to YouTube. So for example here, I have a href called href is the link of our DSC website, and then I have a name called the content called DSC website. So what I want to do is to retrieve this element, change this href to the link of YouTube, and then change the content of this to YouTube. Yeah, so about 3-4 minutes for this. Okay, I'll go through now. Okay, so remember the aim of our exercise is to retrieve this anchor tag element. I want to change this href attribute and then the content of this a tag, right? So const anchor, const link, call it link. Then I want to select my anchor tag, which is A. Then I can set attribute. We can call link dot set attribute href to youtube.com, and then link dot inner text equals to YouTube. And remember to change this to manipulate the DOM tree. So if we run our website right now, if I click my print element, it changes to YouTube. And I click this, it goes to the YouTube website. So previously it was DSC, right? Apparently there's something wrong with the DSC website right now. But once I click my print element, it changes to YouTube. So for bigger view, let's say I click this, change to YouTube, and then links to my YouTube page. Okay, so this is about changing attributes, classes, and styles. Let's see. Okay, we have another exercise, which is to modify the class to button2. Okay, so we have this button2 over here, and I want to modify this class over here to active. So I want to add this class called active to this button, and then change the text of the button to clicked. So over here, it's just click me. After that, I want it to be clicked, and then adding a active class over here. Yeah. This active class has been written for you in the CSS, so you don't have to worry. And then remember to change this to, it's okay. You have to change anything because either another event listener over here, which is DOM for, which refers to this function. So all you have to do is to change my class of button2 and adding another class called active to it, and then changing the text of the button. So about 3 minutes for this exercise. Okay, I'll go through. So the aim of the exercise is again to add extra class to this button element and then changing the text. So I'll select my button, new button. So my button have a class called button dash do. Then one rule is to add the active class dot class list dot add active. After that, I need to change the inner text as well. Dot inner text equals to clicked. Okay, so that's all. If I run my code, I'm going to refresh, click me, yeah, it will change. Okay, become to clicked. So this is very important for a website that likes to provide a lot of users, that provides a better user experience. So that as you click the button, it tells you that it's clicked, so that you know that your action is successful. One thing I can do is I can use this thing called toggle, right, instead of add. So if it exists, then I remove it. If it does not exist, then I add the class to this. So I click this, click. If I click again, it'll back to normal. Yeah. Yeah. So if you see our HTML elements again, it will reflect the changes. So right now it's got this, it has this class called active. Then if I click again, you'll remove it. If I click again, you'll add this to it. Yeah. Okay. Right now you move on to DOM events. So right now we have actually we actually implemented some event listeners. Okay. What is an event? Event are HTML events are things that happen to HTML elements. Things can refer to input from the user or something that the browser does. So what we did just now was to click a button and then a function is being fired. Or we can also press a key on the keyboard like the enter or the page down, page up button. These are considered events because these are inputs from the user itself. You are clicking a button or you're pressing a key. Or when a form is submitted, which has the event called submit. Or another thing that a browser does is when it finishes loading. So these are events that HTML can look out for in a DOM. And for every event, you want to attach to an event listener. So an event listener is a block of code like the manipulate DOM that you see just now that runs when the event fires. So the manipulate DOM that you see just now is actually an event handler. So when you click the button, then this function fires. Yeah. So you can add element listener using this thing called add event listener. The event itself, like click, submit, key down, key up, and then the function that you want to run upon clicking this event. Okay, so this is actually an example of an event listener. Okay, so if let's say you want to do another event listener like um, hover or mouse over, then we can change the color of this. Let's say we want to select this paragraph element again. Const p equals to dot query selector p, then p, then you want to add an event listener to this. So you add event listener method, say mouse over, then you want to call a function, then you want to, let's say, alert. So you try alert high, or hover forward. Okay, so if you mouse over, then it will show you hover over here. Okay, so this is one example of a event. There's a lot of events that you can Google, and this is one of the events that we are doing. And one of the most common events are click events, so the exercise for this is to um, upon clicking the view image button, you want to display the image by removing the class. You can either try on your own or you can copy the code over here. So I have a button tree over here, and I have another image element that has a class called hidden, which hides the class, the image I have right now. So you see that it doesn't display the image because I written some styles to hide this. So what I have to do is that upon clicking this button, I want to remove this class to display the image. Okay, so you can, this is the selecting and event listener part, and this is the part where you make the image appear by removing the class. So about 3 to 4 minutes for this exercise. Okay, I'll go through again. So the aim of the exercise is to click this button, then display this image by removing this hidden class. So I have to select my image element, query selector, image. Then I use my class list property to remove my hidden class. That's all. Then I also need to select my button tree. Button tree equals to document dot query selector dot button tree, because there's a class called button tree. Then now to add an event listener. So button tree dot add event listener. Click. You can use a very shorthand method, anonymous function using the arrow function. Then you want to call manipulate DOM5 over here. Yeah. So if I run, refresh again, then it'll display my image. Okay. So if I click this now, it'll display my image. Otherwise, you can do, instead of remove, you can use toggle. So for right now, it's not there. So if you click, it will show. And if you click again, you'll remove, you'll add the class back. So to see that in the HTML elements again, say I can do responsive. Okay, so over here, my image, right? There's a class called hidden. So if I click this, it will remove it. And I click again, it will show my class. Yeah. And you can see that I have my event listeners over here. Yeah. Okay, so that's all for event listeners. So the final topic is about fetching data from third-party APIs. Okay, so and this is using a technology called AJAX. So what is AJAX? AJAX stands for asynchronous JavaScript and XML, and it allows web pages to be updated asynchronously by exchanging data with a web server behind the scenes. This means that it's possible to update parts of a web page without reloading the entire page. And this is actually a technique used by the browser to fetch data from the server, and it's not a programming language. So earlier I have shown you undraw, right, like this web page. So at first, there's a search bar, and I search for some image, some illustrations that I want, and you realize that it actually displays some images according to my keyword web, and there is also no page below, right? So where does this data come from? It actually comes from some remote server that Undraw fetches the data from using AJAX, and then they create the different elements that is being displayed after I enter the search. So if I search something else like mobile, you look for mobile illustrations and return to me dynamically. So this is using a technique called AJAX, where it fetches data from some third-party APIs or servers and then return back to the front end. And this is done using JavaScript and AJAX. Okay. And just now I mentioned API. And API is a very important tool in today's technology. It's called Application Programming Interface. And previously, to render the entire web page, right, your browser expects a response in HTML, which contains representation code in HTML. But an API call is just a data transfer in a format called JSON. Okay, so instead of, let's say, you call unsearch.co, right, you return you a web page. But for API, it's different. It returns you data that is being processed using JavaScript. And the format is called JSON, which is similar to a JavaScript object on a Python dictionary. Okay, and the common purpose of API is to really use for communication between services. So for example here, I think we are very familiar with login or sign up using social media services. So if I continue with Facebook over here, what Spotify does is that it will call Facebook APIs, and then Facebook will ask for your credential, and if successful, they'll tell Spotify that you are a valid user for Facebook. And then Spotify will authenticate you and allow you to log in. So what this does is that it prevents Spotify from creating another authentication system. Okay, so APIs also, what it works is that it prevents you from reinventing the wheel. You don't have to create your own authentication system just for a new application. You can use like current authentication system like Facebook, Google, or even Apple. Okay, and what it really does is that it just calls Facebook APIs, and then it checks whether the user is a user of Facebook, and if it does, it authenticates for Spotify. Another common thing for e-commerce is that there are a lot of payment methods that we can embed on our applications. And these are very, very easily done using APIs that these Visa companies, these payment companies build for us. So if I click Visa and I click MasterCard, it will actually help us do the transaction behind the scene without us doing anything at all. And this is really just a matter of data transfer between your website and Visa server, okay? And this data we'll see later and how all this API will look like. Okay, so they are in this format called JavaScript object notation, which is a format for storing and transporting data. And when you transport data between one place and another, it can only be text. That means it can only be in strings, right? Yeah. So later we'll see how a typical AI looks like. So for AJAX, right, it's actually, this is a boilerplate code that you can use when you want to call APIs. So you need to first create a new object called XML HTTP request, which is provided by JavaScript browser DOM APIs. You can create this and then you pass this to a variable called request. And then you can call the API by using the URL given to you or the developers that they created. After that, so once you call the API, right, you want to do something with the data that you obtain by calling the API. And then you can write this in a function and pass it to request.load. So whatever you want to do, right, you must pass it in a function to onload, request.onload, which is an attribute of request. After that, you send the request to the server. So it actually, so there are several steps over here, and they are really, really very standard. So you create a new request object. After that, you open the request to the third-party APIs, which is the server, and then you write a function of whatever you want to do with that data. You can create elements like undraw, which creates different elements of the illustration based on the keyword that I search for. After that, you call request.send and then send a request to the server. And this will all be done using JavaScript. So your web page will update asynchronously without any page reload, which really provides a very good user experience. Okay, so I think for now we can take a 15 minutes break and then I will show you a quick demo of calling API and then building and then combining all the things that we have learned earlier with a Star Wars project. So there's a third party Star Wars API that we can use later. Yeah, so we just take a quick 15 minutes break before we come back to this. Yeah. So I think we can be back by 8:20 or 8:25. Yeah, I think we'll be back by 8:25. Okay, I'll just go through some of the questions that we have over here. So this person asked, for the button resize function, is there a way to change the text back as well? So I think you are referring to this, right? So if I click this, then if I resize it back, right, you go back to click me. Okay, so I think for this we need to add more logic. So I think we can expand on this, right? So I forgot to say that this class list property, right, actually has this method called contains. It check whether that element has this class that is being specified here. So what I can do is that in button dot contains dot class list dot contains active, right? If it contains active, you want to remove it. So what you can do is that you want to remove the active class, and then you want to change the text back to the original, which is click me. Otherwise, uh, you want to add the class active, and then you want to change the inner text to click. Okay, so let's run this again. So in this case, that's how we change. You just need to add more logic to this. Okay. So another question we have is that, is there a way to make it such that it only appends element like once, even if the user clicks it multiple times? So this is very similar to the previous one on button. You just need to check if that element exists in the DOM. If it exists, if only it does not exist, then you append it. So you just need to write an if statement to it. How do you show the changes on the web page itself after writing on the console? Okay, so the demonstration, the fact that I only use console is only for demonstration purposes. For real world or for project, you should always write in a JavaScript file and then link it using this script tag over here. Okay, yeah, so the console is just for demonstrating the code so that it runs live as I write. Yeah, so do not worry about it. You must always just create a new JavaScript file and then add this to your HTML file using this script tag, and then your path, the path of your file in the source attribute. Yeah, I can share the computer code after this. Yeah. How do you open a HTML in an iPhone emulator? I'm not sure about what iPhone emulator you're talking about, but in this case, the code runs locally in your directory. So all you have to do is just to open this file in your laptop by double clicking it. Yeah. So for example, I just have to double click this thing, and then it will show. Yeah. Okay. Give me a moment. Okay, I think we can move on to the project now. Okay. So okay, so the goal of this project is to search a film using one of its keywords and then display that film's details dynamically using JavaScript. And then the API we are using is this thing called swappy.dev. Okay, I'll just show you this API that you can use. So what it does is that, so this is a form of API, and then this returns you a character in Star Wars in this format. So there's a curly braces. So this represents one character or one character object, which has attributes of name, height, mass, hair color, and the others. So for this, right, you want to do films. You want to search for a film, and then we can get all the films using this endpoint over here. Okay, but we won't specify one because that's only to get one film resource. We want to get all the film. Okay, so if I get back to my home and I call films, okay, I'll get all. So the films, right, is in this attribute called results, okay, and it returns me an array of all the films over here. So the first one I have A New Hope, then the second one I have Return of the Jedi, and then so on and so forth. Okay, so I need to call this API in my JavaScript so that it returns me this data over here. Okay, so this is a form of API. Okay, this is the data that I retrieve from Shopee server, and this is free and open source. So we are going to use this API over here to get the data that we want. Okay. So a glimpse on the final product is as such. There's a search bar, and then where you're able to enter the keyword, after that it outputs a card, a Star Wars card that has all these details. It has the title of the project, it's title of the film, the episode, the synopsis, and the director. Okay, so we built something like this. Okay, you can either follow me or you can just watch me do it, and then and then try to follow what I'm doing. Okay, so you can open your project templates over here. So what you can do is use doc is to uh, command copy this, change directory to the directory where your source code is. Then you use code dot to open all the files at once using DS code. Okay, so I provided some template over here. I have the header, also have the form input as well as an error message. Most of the logic will be contained in this app.js in the JavaScript, which is what we are going to build. So for now, what we have is just a simple okay, it's not loading right now, but it's okay. For now, we only have something like this. Yeah, something like this over here. So right now, we're going to build a logic to output this card, this information over here after we search upon a keyword. Yeah, so what we have is something like this. So for now, it doesn't work. There's nothing. Yeah, so we're going to build this functionality using JavaScript and using this API over here. Okay, so do follow me. So this is the API that we have, the endpoint, which is shown over here. Okay, this is the API that we are going to call. It's called I pass this under the variable called endpoint, and I also selected the form using query selector. That means I select this form over here. Okay, and then I built several functions that we can do. Okay, so the steps to follow is that upon submitting this form, right? Submitting this form over here, we want to call the Star Wars API, and then we want to output information about the film that we want to have. Okay, so in this, I added a form.add event listener, okay, which is listening for this event called submit. Okay, then it retrieves an event called event of it retrieves a parameter called event. So what I want to do is I want to call, hold on, I want to call event dot prevent default. This will prevent the default behavior of pressing enter. Okay, so if I'm pressing enter now, you see that there's something over here. I want to prevent this default behavior. Okay, then I want to select the input that so I input something here and I want to retrieve it. So I document dot query selector. I want to retrieve the input using input film over here. So what is this? This is my input element. It's an ID of input film, and this is when I can get my input that I entered. Okay, so what I can do is that I want to convert this to a lowercase so that I can pass it to my Star Wars API later. So so okay, let's try to do this first. Input. So let how about alert the input that we enter. Okay. So let's say I enter some film. Then you should object input element. I should call dot value. Dot value. Then return me the value itself. So some film. They return me over here. So this is what I will pass to the Star Wars API over here. Later. And I want to convert this to lowercase. I want to cast this to lowercase so that it prevents it's to convert all different user inputs to to lowercase so that I can search later, because user input can enter anything like some film or like some film. So I want to force it to lowercase for all different inputs. Okay. So after I enter my form, right, I want to get the Star Wars data. I get the Star Wars. I want to call this function over here, which is get Star Wars film. Okay. I want to get Star Wars film. And then I pass whatever I want into this. So let's implement this Star Wars film over here. Okay. Okay. So remember my boilerplate template over here? I have to use this over here. So const request equals to new XML HTTP request object. Okay. Then I also want to call an open method, which is a get request to my endpoint over here. Okay. Then remember that I also need a request.onload. I need to populate this with a function. Okay, so request.onload equals to a function. Okay, so this part, right, is where I write whatever I want to do after I get my data. So request is being processed. So do processing over here. Okay, so if the request is successful, that means it will return me a status code of 200. Okay, and then I want to get the JSON data. So what I can do is that I let JSON equals to JSON dot pass request dot response. Remember I mentioned earlier that data can only be transferred in text. That means this, right, is actually a string object. So I want to pass this to a JSON object, which is similar to this over here. Okay, so let's try this. So I want to console.log this and see what I get. So, okay, so let's see. So I enter some field. So there's an error over here. Okay, say I remove this first. Check. Let's create this. Positive code input. Request transfer. Okay, let's try again. Okay, I think to reopen this. Still not running. Oh, let me check first. Request object. Okay, let me check where's the error. So this is working. This form is working. So the error is in my. Okay, is it cause I didn't call request.send? Let's try. Okay, so I retrieve my data over here. Okay, so if you see, right, I have my data object over here. Okay, and note that my list of films is in this attribute called results. Okay, so I'm only interested in this attribute called results. So what I'm going to do, right, is that I want my list of films to just call JSON.results, then return just the list of films that I'm interested in. And I can test this out by calling console.log.film. Okay, films. Okay, let's try again. So it will return me an array of all the films that I have over here. Okay. all the film that I have over here, all the data that I have. Okay, but we only want the film based on the keyword that we inputted into the form, right? So I want to filter it. So I want to have the filtered film, right? So what I can do is I call films dot filter for every film. So this filter function is a higher order function. It asks for a function as an input. So I can do another arrow function. So for each film, right, I want the film dot title. So I can check the title of each film, the title over here, and check whether it contains my film title over here. Okay. And, and this, right, if it's successful, it returns you an array. Okay. Hopefully, there's only one item because we want to filter only for that film. Okay. And we also want, okay, I think this is called includes. It's not contain. Whether the film includes this film title. And I want to convert this to lowercase. Okay. And I think we can console.log filtered film. Okay. To see the result. So if let's say I search for Jedi, then it returns me nothing. Okay, shouldn't be nothing. Say, what other New Hope? Okay, New Hope. Okay, returns me uh, a film called New Hope, right? Okay. So what I do is that I just want this. So I need to access this film, right, by using this zero-based indexing to get the first film. Because now it's still passing me an array or a list of all the films. In this case, we only have one, but I just want this film over here, okay? So I can do that by using an array-based indexing from 0 to retrieve that first film. So say, it's called New Hope, right? So New Hope, then I get just that data, okay? So our API call is successful over here. Okay, so if filtered film, right, the array contains at least one item, or at least it's more than 0, that means my search result is successful. There exists a film based on my keyword, and I want to create that Star Wars card. I want to create that Star Wars card, and then I pass that film into this. Okay, I think I'll create a new variable for this. Let 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 film. Okay. Can do it over here. Can do it over here. Okay. So I pass to this. So what is this Star Wars card about? This Star Wars card refers to this thing that we are going to create. This Revenge of the Sith. This box that you see over here. Okay. So we're going to implement this in this function called create Star Wars card. Okay. And all the data will be passed from this get Star Wars film in here. Okay. So what I can do is that see. Okay. So firstly, I need a div element. So I create a Star Wars card document dot create element called div, and I also want to add a class to this. Don't worry, the class is created for you in the CSS file. So what you can do is add div class Star Wars card dot class list dot add Star Wars card. Let me check. Star Wars card. Yeah, over here, Star Wars card. It's been written for you. So okay, let's test it out. Say New Hope. Okay, never mind. So we just implement this first. So we want to populate this div with more elements, right? Because we want to render some data about this film, such as the title, the episode, as well as the opening crawl, the director, and the release date. So we want to create elements for each of these, okay? So what we can do is that we create elements for the title, create element for the title, then the opening crawl. What else? We have the director, we also have the release date. Okay, so let's create element for this. Create title. Page one, opening crawl will be a paragraph. Paragraph copy, and then director can also be another paragraph element. Element copy, and then release date can also be another paragraph. Okay, but now we want to populate this with data from our filter film over here. Okay, and we can retrieve this right using dot title, dot episode ID, and dot opening crawl, and so on and so forth. Then my inner, so my title inner text will be equals to data dot title. Then my opening crawl inner HTML equals to data dot opening crawl. I'm following the exact phrasing over here because what I receive is actually this object over here. Okay, then my director dot inner HTML equals to data dot director, and my release date it's inner HTML data dot release date. Okay, so now we want to add all of these elements to this Star Wars card over here. Okay, so we do a lot of appends. So Star Wars card dot append. Okay, opening crawl director, and then my release date. Oh, I forgot the episode. Let's create a new paragraph. Episode dot inner HTML equals to data dot episode ID, which is here. Okay, let's see. Then you want to append this Star Wars card container to my HTML, which is my document dot body element dot append Star Wars card. Okay, so let's try this out. Okay, let's search for some. It returns an object card over here. Let's say Jedi again. Return over Jedi, then revenge. But you realize that all of this, right? You continue append to one another. Then I add more New Hope, Last Hope. You keep appending as long as you just keep appending to this, which is not what we want. Yeah. So what we can do is that what we can do for this part, right, is that we check whether this element it's already in the HTML. If it's available in the HTML, you remove it, then you create a new one. So what we can do is something like this. If so current Star Wars card equals to document dot query selector div dot Star Wars card, right? So if this card exists, then we want to remove this. Then we create another new one, which is document.body.append my current Star Wars card. Otherwise, you just do this. Okay. Check. Document.body.append. Okay. Great. So let's try this out again. So you'll remove that current element and then replace it with a new one. So imagine if this thing exists right now, you'll remove the current one and then replace it with the new one. Okay, so that it doesn't keep appending to my body. Okay, so I hope you are following, and that actually is the main gist of our project. Another thing we can do is to display an error message, which I will leave you to do that on your own. Yeah, so let's improve this card a little bit better. Okay, so let's check. Okay, it's returning undefined. Okay, I think what we can say that it's being directed by, oh, it's not this. Can use this syntax here, which is for string formatting, data.director. And then data.release date. ID. Okay. JDI directed by this, and then you get my date over here. Okay. Okay. How does it release on? Yeah. For this pass date over here, right, is to convert this to a format that you want. Because right now it returns me year, month, and then the day. But what I want is that I want, let's say I just want May 26th. That's what I can do over here. So let me check. Okay, so you can get all the month name first. So let's say I get one month names. Go to Jan, Feb, April, May, and so on and so forth. September, December, right? So I can create a new date object using this over here. Then I pass a date string to this. This is provided by JavaScript inbuilt. Then you can get the month using month name. You subset this, you call the index of date.getMonth. Okay. Then the year would be date.getYear. Get full year. Okay. Then you want to return something in this release. So you just want the month and then the year. So you can return month and then the year. Let's that we call pass data.release date. You return the format that we want, May 1983. Yep. Okay, so I think that is the main gist of our project. I hope you are following me. Yeah, okay, so moving forward. So what we covered today is a lot on HTML document object manipulation. HTML itself is just a very static website and a static file, but we can use JavaScript to make it more dynamic and more interactive. And that is really the focus of our workshop today. So moving forward, right, I think what you can do is to build more projects to improve your JS skills. Or if you want, you can start to learn a new front-end web framework like React.js or Vue.js. If you're interested, you can also consider picking up web app database design and building APIs. So this Swappy API is actually a backend thing. So there is actually a database that contains all of this data, and developers actually write APIs so that people like us can use it for our own cost. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So I think that is the end of our workshop. Yeah. So Thanks for joining me. If you have time, please scan this QR code to give me your feedback. And yeah, thanks all. Yeah. Let me see.